Please welcome to the stage Concordia's Matthew Swift and Dave Levy of Amazon Web Services.
All right, Dave Levy of Amazon Web Services. Dave, I'm really glad you're here because I think this conversation is going to cover something on the front of just about everyone's mind. And I think about this 2-3 years ago, and this is probably the fault of people in my position. I don't think there was a single session that would be at this summit talking about AI. And now it's one of the most sought after covered sessions. But what I want to really dive into is this intersection between what the private sector and what the market is driving with AI, and then frankly, how it impacts government, what's going to happen going forward, and how we address, there seems to be a lot about the fears. And so what is it that the private sector is doing in advance? So let's dive right in, because I really do want to talk about how AWS is able to advance AI models that frankly are ethically designed and deployed, but specifically within sort of sensitive data sets, especially from the private sector.
Sure.
Within the public sector.
What I thought you were going to say is that you think about it 2 or 3 times a day, like I do. And so those of us in this business are thinking about AI and generative AI literally, every millisecond of the day. I do think that the comment around responsible AI and how AI is going to be deployed and continue to be deployed is really important. And it's really important in the, both in public and private context. But in the public sector context, I do think there's a huge opportunity. I think when we look at emerging technologies like artificial intelligence and generative artificial intelligence, and it's going to really reinvent almost every experience, every customer experience that we believe. And we think that's also true in the public sector. And so for public sector organizations, I think it's going to be particularly important to think about how these technologies are going to enable them to move faster, how they're going to enable them to deliver better experiences for citizens, how they're going to enable better safety and security. So I do think we're at the very forefront of these sorts of things for public sector organizations. We're really in the very early days, and we're at the beginning. And I would also say we're at the beginning of this notion of responsible AI and what it's going to mean for public sector organizations around the world.
But who's leading on advancing responsible AI? Is it coming from government, most governments of which were not designed, nor probably should be expected to adapt as quickly as the technology is advancing? So is this something that industry is leading on in some way?
Well, I think it's industry and government together. We're very closely tied in with governments all around the world, particularly the US government, on responsible AI. And we kind of fundamentally believe that the responsible use of AI is the bedrock. And so we have a set of principles that we advance. We work with customers on governance around using systems that they design and that we help them design as well too. And it's things like making sure you get the right response, or you get the right outputs that you expect to get, or that you rule out outputs that you don't want to get. And creating a framework and then educating. I think a big, one of the fundamental factors here is training and education. And so we play a large role in training customers and partners and everyone around the world about educating them about the responsible use of artificial intelligence.
Okay, so I'm the CEO, so I can ask the stupid questions that other people might not be afraid of.
It's the CEO's job to ask those questions.
Exactly. Explain to all of us what generative AI means.
Yeah. So generative AI is...
Generative, excuse me.
Yeah, that's okay.
Good start.
Generative AI, maybe simply put, is leveraging artificial intelligence and machine learning to have machines make predictions about things, to take data in, to simplify tasks, and you can generate and mimic human responses through generative AI. So, the possibilities are just right now at the very beginning limitless. Like an example of that is, imagine a customer service agent who speaks 14 languages fluently and is always online, has all the answers that you might want to have about what your particular customer need is at that time. And then you've got a whole set of humans behind that too, backing that up. So think about the productivity opportunities for an organization that can deploy something like that. Now that's future forward. I'm not aware of any applications like that yet, but you can think about the concept of that as where these use cases can go.
So it's interesting because if you talk to most leaders that are here for this week's UN General Assembly, probably one of the biggest challenges that they are facing is that trust and faith in institutions is in certain cases at such an all-time low, not really getting better globally, and therefore, and probably a product of a lot of these massive public sector entities not, frankly, successfully delivering on what they're supposed to. So if I'm hearing you correctly, you think that this could actually maybe change that, drive things in a much more positive direction through technology to make sure that these services are better delivered.
Yeah, I think that's the case. We've got already in public sector use cases, in a council in the UK, Swindon Borough Council, they created a generative AI application, for example, to read lease agreements for citizens whose first language is in English. And so helping a citizen who's maybe newly immigrated into a country or newly landed into a particular place, understand how they're interacting with their local government, helping them ask questions, doing it in their own natural language. These are things that help drive engagement for governments. And again, that's one example, but there are many examples already out there, and then there are more, I think, that are going to be created.
How does it help infrastructure?
Infrastructure in the sense of
Broader public works infrastructure.
Well, I think technologies, particularly emerging technologies, can help organizations move fast and help organizations scale, help them disseminate information quickly, create the opportunity for transparency. These emerging technologies, the ones that we're a part of, cloud and artificial intelligence, they can help speed up processes. They can help create faster decision making. So I think there are a whole host of benefits for governments and public sector organizations around the world.
And talk a little bit about what you're doing outside of the U.S. This is a global audience, over 90 countries represented at this summit alone. Talk a bit about some of your regional priorities and where, frankly, you're starting to see some examples of success in implementation. Is there a country model here?
I don't think there's I wouldn't call it a country model. We do business with over 7,500 governments around the world, 180 countries. So we're in virtually every area around the world. It's probably more relevant to talk about the areas that we're not in, which you could probably imagine those. But it's everything. It's everything from countries like India, who take a lead in things like education technology, where they're creating applications for students to do creative writing. In artificial intelligence. I mean, I wish I had that. I was a terrible creative writer as a kid. So there are a whole host of opportunities around education. Healthcare is a good example where I see countries around the world who are leading in healthcare in terms of how they invest and what they're doing with respect to research. If you think about the possibilities of artificial intelligence with respect to research and speeding research from the time you begin to in areas of drug discovery So all around the world we see this. I don't think that there's a country that I visited, and we talked about a little bit about this backstage, my schedule, that isn't thinking about how to harness this power and how to put it to use for very positive things to have impact on their countries, on their citizens, on their stakeholders. We see it everywhere.
Two questions for you on that front. First, what do you say to the person that says, this technology scares me because it means I'm out of a job?
Yeah.
I'm sure you get mentioned that a lot.
I think, what we would say to that person is, we fundamentally believe that these technologies are going to allow people to focus on higher value tasks. They're going to take tasks, particularly early on, they're going to take tasks that are repetitive, that can be done quickly, and create value in that way so that people can focus on higher and higher value tasks. And I think that's part of the training and education piece that we emphasize, that we don't see this as something where us as humans aren't going to be in the loop. We fundamentally see this as something that's going to help with productivity for all organizations.
Let's shift to defense for a second. I think there are so many stories about the role of the private sector currently within the defense industry, probably resulting in incredible advancements, probably also raising into question what should the role of the private sector be in implementation of government defense. Where do you see AWS playing a role when it comes to defense?
Well, we've been involved with defense and national security for quite some time. We really had, in 2013, a really groundbreaking contract with the U.S. intelligence community that I think, both benefited the defense and national security establishment, but also industry as well, just in the learnings between the two organizations. So. I think we fundamentally believe that defense and national security organizations should have access to the best technology possible to enable their missions, period. And we're very committed to that. And we believe the innovation that AWS brings, whether it's cloud innovation or an innovation in emerging technologies like generative AI, that defense and national security should have access to those. The establishment should have access, and then those teams working on critical missions should have access. And we're determined to provide that, and we continue to provide that.
How do you navigate, though, broader policy objectives of different countries? Or I guess, let me put it a different way. What is that line that AWS will not cross when it comes to engagement of an existing defense issue? Are there, for instance, do you just follow U.S. policy and won't work with countries that the U.S. will not work with? How do you navigate that?
Well,
purely in the defense space.
Purely in the defense space. Look, we operate, like I said, in almost every country
in the world, over 180 countries.
And so our balance is really focused on our customers. We will always follow all U.S. laws. That is something that we are very strict about. And particularly on the ally side, that conversation is an ongoing conversation between our allies, if you look at the AUKUS construct. And so we get feedback from almost everybody we can get feedback with. And then we go out and we say, what do our customers really want? What are they really asking for that's going to help them deliver on their mission? And we provide that if we're able to deliver that for them. And so our line is, if customers need support helping to drive their mission, we want to be there for them to help drive that mission.
What area, and last question, what area are you most excited about in terms of seeing the impact of implementation of AI?
I think it's the speed. I think when cloud first really began to get noticed It was about things like cost efficiency, rehosting of websites, very kind of efficiency-based gains, which were meaningful. They were very meaningful for public sector organizations. They're very meaningful for defense and national security organizations, and they'll continue to be meaningful. But what I'm most excited about with technologies like artificial intelligence is the speed and agility that these organizations are going to get, because we know they need that speed and agility in this world, in this paradigm where everything is very dynamic. The threats are dynamic. The economic landscape is incredibly dynamic. And so being able to get speed and agility is important. And one of the things that we like to say at AWS and at Amazon broadly is speed is not preordained. It's not a preordained thing that you can actually go fast just because you want to. It's something you have to be prepared for. Your infrastructure has to be prepared for it, your organization needs to be prepared for it, and your culture needs to be prepared for it. And so we see our role as helping create those conditions under which it's not going to be preordained. And when our customers need to move quickly and have agility, they can do it, and they're ready to do it.
And you feel optimistic that the public sector is ready to absorb that kind of change?
I do. I do. And you know, I've worked in the public sector space for longer than I'd like to admit, maybe. Maybe my hair is a little gray if I grew it in here. But I do. I think the public sector space is ready. I think that they are poised to do this. They've done a lot of work over the last 10 to 12 years, which I've seen very up close. And I think different organizations will get there at different times. But I do think the environment around public sector organizations and the people that have come into roles, the technologists that are coming in and out of public sector, the leaders, I think leaders at all levels of government are now better informed about technology, way more capable and experienced maybe than when I started. So I'm very optimistic about it and very encouraged. I want it to move faster. I think a lot of us do. We all want it to move faster, and we need it to move faster, but I'm very encouraged by it.
Well, Dave Levy, thank you very, very much for being with us, and such
Awesome.
an important topic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.